Don't we all love to save money? Imagine living with your parents just so that you can squeeze a couple of hundred, maybe $1,000 every month. We get to enjoy the stories that our parents tell us after they head back home from work. Isn't that a joy? Come on, now who are we kidding? The truth is, most of us do not naturally love to save money, but some of us do, but you are the exception, so but we all still do it anyway because we know it's important. Or is it? You see, without control, our mind naturally gravitates towards like a short-term bias, to spend money that gives us like instant gratification, and this will eventually bite us back in the bottom somewhere down the line. For example, when we need like $50,000 down payment to buy our house in Singapore, one of the most expensive cities in the world. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some of my personal budgeting tips, like what worked and what didn't work. And I'm going to share 3 budgeting plans that are highly effective and have made many millionaires. Just a quick disclaimer, it's going to be a long video, but trust me, it's going to be well worth it. Growing up, I was taught to be frugal, but to be honest, I only started budgeting when I was like 16 years old. So when I was young, I saved a lot of money by, being very frugal, like turning off the switches before I leave the house. Whenever I wash my dishes, always make sure the tap is really small so they don't waste water, and never ever sleeping with AC, because even though it's like 30 degrees Celsius or 35 degrees Celsius in Singapore, because I can save money. And funny thing is that budgeting is not just about saving money. Well, because saving money was actually the easy part for me. What was difficult is allocating and actually putting the money to good use. So that was like the part that was really hard for me. So basically the idea of budgeting, or in other words like your spending plan, is you segment your money into ways that you can spend effectively. And I had a lot of problems with spending the money effectively. So according to one of the plans, which I will share with you later, I have to spend the money to build my network, to learn from people who are better than me, like to treat them to lunch, to meet and learn people so that they can, teach me. And that was really difficult because I'm quite shy by nature. I'm not sure if you can tell, but that's why that was particularly difficult for me. Another part that was extremely difficult for me was also the learning part. So a segment of my money is used to, budgeted for me to kind of learn and develop myself. And that's when I actually overspent a lot of money, like paying for training courses by your gurus, which was significantly overvalued with hindsight, now that I think about it. With hindsight, here's what I realized, it is that the less you start out with, like the less money you start out with, the more disciplined you have to be when it comes to managing your money. And this is because you have a much smaller room for error in the event that you overspend. You really have very little savings for like your rainy day expenses. I remember me and my good friend, both of us are very frugal, and when we grew up together, the difference was that he was a lot more careful with how he spent his money compared to me. We both save a lot, we save like crazy, and we just graduated from university. The difference, I just managed to pay off my university debt. I'm pretty much debt free if I use all my savings and pay it in one shot. But for my friend, not only has he paid off his entire university debt, he has saved enough money to pay like the down payment of a flat in Singapore. That's like $50,000 extra. So that's the difference between managing your money well over like a decade of us knowing each other. You know the saying, the best place to invest is in yourself. And what happened was that I took it very literally, and I spent like tens of thousands of dollars buying courses just to help myself, which in hindsight I realized I overpaid for them. Alright, so enough of storytelling. I'm going to share with you guys the 3 different methods. Bear in mind, I'm just some random guy on the internet that is sharing with you what I've learned. So if I've made any mistakes, feel free to kind of correct me in the comment section down below so that you learn, I learn, we all learn together. I don't mean to preach like I know everything, because I honestly don't. So method number 1 is the 6-jar system by T Harv Eker. Harv Eker. I can't remember if it's T Harv Eker that taught me this 6-jar method, or Anthony Robbins. Basically, they are like success coaches. They teach people how to master their wealth, their life, and become very successful in whatever they do. So it's like personal development gurus, coaches, and they are like world-renowned, famous, really capable people. But either way, the method of allocating money goes something like this. So they recommend like spending about 55% of your money in necessities, basically like your rent, your living expenses, your food, water, your mobile phones, subscription plans, things of that sort. All this goes under like 55% necessity. Next, you spend 10% of your money in long-term spending, like for example, buying a house which you need, or buying a car. You probably need to save for a year or two as well. And rainy day fund also goes into this bucket. The third bucket is your play bucket. So apart from just spending a lot of money on your expenses as well as your long-term needs, it is also important to set aside money to actually go out and play. Why? Because I remember T Harv Eker telling me that play is important because it builds experiences in your life. So imagine if you only work and save and you have no experiences in life. When you want to kind of build your career or start your own business, you have little experiences to leverage on. So by deliberately setting aside money to go and explore and gain experiences, you become a lot more capable as a person. So the fourth bucket is the financial freedom bucket. Basically, you spend 10% of your money to buy back your retirement or freedom down the line. So typically, the advice here is to put like in a diversified S&P 500 ETF. So that should get you like a 7 to 10% average return over a long period of time. Of course, if you are a little bit more in-depth, you might want to consider more advanced portfolio techniques like your Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio, things of that sort, but I won't cover that in this video. So the fifth jar is your education jar. Again, you need to spend 10% of your money to kind of educate yourself. So when you're starting out, 10% is probably going to be like very little amount of money. So you could practically only afford books. So the sixth and last jar is your charity, your giving kind of jar. Basically, you spend 5% of your money giving back to society. So personally, I did not actually follow this 5% rule. Instead, what I did was I volunteered like, I think 5% of my time, 2 hours a week. Yeah, 2 hours a week helping underprivileged kids in my community, teaching them tuition for free. So that's one way I did it, because I really didn't want to spend that 5%. The thing is that the rationale for this is that when you give, you start to appreciate and you start to feel better about yourself. So I think that's the mentality that Anthony Robbins and T Harv Eker kind of preach. So that's method number one. Personally, I think that the amount of money invested in retirement fund is a little bit on the low side, but that's what I personally think, because 10% of a fund, if you do the math, let's say you have like $2,000 every month or $3,000 every month, you're saving like $300 for a long-term retirement plan. So it's, in my opinion, a little bit risky, and this assumes that you are going to be able to increase the amount of money you earn over a period of time. So in my opinion, a little bit risky. And that's where I think method number two, this 5-segment method by Li Ka Shing, I find this to be a little bit, or not a little bit, a lot more appropriate for my situation. So Li Ka Shing, for those of you that don't know him, he is basically a Hong Kong self-made billionaire, and he is really amazing in that he started off working as an apprentice for a factory and slowly worked his way up and became like a big business owner. So really amazing guy. I think his net worth is like over $35 billion. So really capable and amazing guy. And I think during one interview that an article a journalist had with him, he gave this advice: basically split your money into 5 different buckets, and he gave like approximate amounts for each bucket and explained why. The first bucket he recommended was for living expenses, and that's like 30% of your income. And when I saw like 30%, I was like, what? That's really little. And Li Ka Shing actually went and further elaborated that, yeah, 30% is little, but because most of us who are listening to this advice, we are still young, our body is able to survive on that little, at least for a period of time. So basically we can take it. And once you do the math, actually it is doable. So if you think about it, if you share like a rental apartment with a partner, you can choose like a significantly smaller apartment, or apartment that is not in the main business district. So you actually pay a lot lesser in rent. It's uncomfortable, but it is possible to keep all your expenses within like 30% of your income. Even if you're in like places like in Singapore, which is like the world's most expensive city. Bucket number 2 is friends and network. Again, Li Ka Shing recommends spending about 20% of your money networking with people who are more capable than you so that you can learn from them. But he also states that it's not just to learn from them, but it's also to build up your reputation as a person. So once you build up like your job reputation and influence, in the event sometime down the line when you need like job referrals or business opportunities or partners for your ventures, you have this network built because you're constantly building network throughout a long period of time. And surprisingly, what I found was that I really didn't spend anywhere near like 20% of my money buying meals for my friends, because most of the time, because I am like, I don't know, it's me or my friends, we generally eat quite cheap. So that's my issue. I'm not sure if I'm not meeting enough people or I was just eating very cheap. And the third bucket that Li Ka Shing recommends is learning. And again, similar to Anthony Robbins' T Harv Eker's 6-jar system, 15% of your money, learn and develop yourself. And Li Ka Shing even recommends, like, once you earn even more money as your income like rises, invest in like advanced courses or maybe like mastermind groups. So basically, as your income scale, the kind of courses that you should go for also becomes a lot more expensive and skill level appropriate. So very quickly, bucket number 4, 10% of your money in holidays so that you gain worldly knowledge and build on life experiences. Bucket number 5, he recommends 25% in investments. So investments could be like running your own startup or like investing in like a stocks portfolio or other kinds of investment portfolio. So when you think about Li Ka Shing's portfolio, it's actually really similar to the first 6-jar bucket portfolio, but the difference is that there's quite a little bit more emphasis on investments. So I think that's where it makes a lot more difference, and I personally think this works out a lot more closely for me in Singapore, because if I save only 10%, it's a big risk for a place like Singapore where prices of everything is so expensive. But before we jump to any conclusion, let's look at the last really popular and well-known technique, and I call this the 50-30-20 technique. I think this technique was popularized by Senator Elizabeth Warren. The beauty of this technique is that it's so simple to follow. There's only 3 buckets that you need to kind of know. 50% of your money is used for like necessities and living expenses, but bear in mind, like, if you need to pay like loans, servicing like a loan, this goes under the 50%, and the next 30% of your money goes to wants. Basically, you can buy anything you want, enjoy yourself. The budgeting plan does not dictate that you need to kind of spend it with your friends to build network or things of that sort, which in my opinion makes it a lot easier to follow. 30% of your money, spend whatever you want. Sounds great. Now for the last bucket, basically 20% of your money is spent on like investing on long-term things like retirement, paying down your debt early, things of that sort. So once you try to compare the 3 different budgeting techniques, you start to notice a very distinct and obvious trend. Basically, you need to start saving or investing for retirement, and you need to start really early. The beauty of investing is that when money compounds, it's kind of like a snowball. In the beginning, it doesn't really roll by itself, but once it reaches a certain height, a certain velocity, that momentum carried forward would just make it grow very rapidly. Another very interesting fact is that notice the amount that most of these popular portfolios like advise when it comes to investing. The figure that they advise is very similar to our social security system, isn't it? So in places like Singapore, we're actually required to put about 20% of our money into our social security for retirement. Is it a mere coincidence? I think not. Even after knowing 3 different budgeting methods, you kind of need to implement one. And what I've learned is that while it's good to be strict with the budgeting plan, it's not necessary to follow them to the bone. They are used as a guiding principle to kind of guide your spending plan. And if you can save more, squeeze out a couple of extra $100, you can bring it to investing. But it is definitely not advisable to do the reverse, like, squeeze out a little bit of retirement and spend it on your necessities. That being said, implementing it on a day-to-day basis is a lot harder than just knowing the theory, because how do you actually budget your money? Do you put them in envelopes? Well, to be honest, that's actually one of the methods. It's called the Envelop Technique. Basically, whenever you get like your salary, you kind of budget your money into envelopes. So if you use the 3 segment method, then you would put them into 3 different envelopes. If you use the 6-jar techniques, yes, you need 6 envelopes. Downside to this is that when you physically, manage the cash, it's a lot more time consuming. You kind of need to physically put them apart, separate them, and it's also risky in the sense that you can actually lose the money, misplace the money. Someone in your family could just use your money by mistake. Not to mention, the money that sits under your couch does not earn like any sort of interest or anything of that sort. So there's opportunity cost to that. However, the beauty of this is that when you see your money physically, right, like you see your cash getting thinner by the day, you basically start to realize and get a lot more conscious with how you spend your money because you see it depleting physically. The next method to kind of manage your money is to manage them like digitally, because right now you can just easily open 5 different online banking accounts and you just automatically kind of segment your money every month. And the beauty of this is that you don't really see the money, and what you don't see, you tend not to spend. But that's not always the case, because when you don't see the money, like when you tap your card, when you make payments, and because you don't see like how much money you're spending, it's very, very easy to kind of overspend and just run out of cash. So here's how I actually did it. I kind of used sort of like a hybrid system where my credit card only has like a $500 limit, and in my wallet I keep like $200 cash every month. So when I run out of money like in my card, I know like, oh, I need to start watching like my expenses for the rest of the month. And because I'm relatively consistent in the way I spend throughout the month, like I don't buy very sudden large purchases, it's kind of obvious. I can kind of control, basically I have some wiggle room to kind of manage my expenses towards the end of the month when I see my cash depleting. So I kind of get the benefit of managing my money digitally, as well as the benefits of physically looking at my money depleting, which is kind of a sad thing. And when you manage your money digitally, it's a good practice to kind of use some sort of a budgeting software to kind of watch where your expenses are going. And some people prefer to use like Google spreadsheets like me, but it's a lot of work. Just use like a popular app that's linked to your bank so that you can easily see where your money is flowing. I realized that's a lot easier. So after comparing like 3 different budgeting systems as well as different ways to actually implement this, let me know what you think of the 3 different budgeting techniques as well as the actual ways of implementing those budgeting techniques. If you got any other new techniques, feel free to share them in the comment section below. And if you're still not convinced, feel free to check out my other video on why you should live frugally. In the meantime, take care everyone, and this is Gerald signing out. Phew.